Some of them because they're important for the physics of atoms, and some of them because they're questions my brain wants answers to. Like, where is the electron? How fast is it going? How much energy does it have? How big is...
Like we already use for many portions of our code, like input and output, for example. We let the pre-written code do the hidden magic and only worry about what we do with the results. And the cool thing about
Clerk Maxwell. Newton's laws insisted that velocities are never absolute, but always relative, so that their magnitudes must be appended by the phrase, with respect to,
on the planet. But in 2005, he and Dr. Robin Warren received the ultimate validation when they were awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine.
Let that sink in for a moment. Chess is nearly 1,500 years old, and after all of these years spent acquiring knowledge about the game, we're bested by AlphaZero.
And carry out the same experiment, but somewhere else. Here too, we observe that the ball continues in a straight line at a constant speed. It behaves in the same way. The laws
and exists in long, narrow, topographic V-shaped trenches. The deepest of these ever discovered is the Mariana Trench. And despite all logic, life survives.
Bounds of Earth. At this point, we're going to the moon. It'll take several days to reach our destination, but as we sprint across the void, many new procedures.
The GPU first allowed us to train large and accurate neural networks in a reasonable amount of time. A big deal, but an arguably bigger development was when Google founded the multi-billion
constant velocity, because that distinction is meaningless and simply a matter of point of view. However, interestingly, Newton's laws can tell you whether your frame of reference is really accelerating or not. Here's how that works. Take an object...
That is so silky soft. I feel like I have not felt anything this soft. What's the difference in density between this sort of filler material and this core?
It's quite a bit.
To run around and turn all the levers to lock every container down to the ship. It's called a manual twist lock as it relies on manual input to lock it into position. Those are great when you can get to all the levers to check.
The more money you have, the more interest you can make, which means more money you have, right? So in other words, what distinguishes these two growths, even though this is fast, is that this is going to get
got from Target in order to randomly pick one of these archaeological conspiracy theories to talk about in depth. As you may remember, once upon a time, I did have a roulette wheel that I would spin and then pick the archaeological conspiracies that way, but...
All the way from North America to Europe, strike Nazi targets, and return home. But building the world's first intercontinental bomber would be a daunting engineering challenge.
Combat pollution, or even cure disease. When they were first created, Xenobots were already testing the boundaries of how we define life. But then, something truly...
It illuminates the texture, or the ridges and valleys of the surface, kind of like a sunset falling across rolling hills. The tops of the hills catch and reflect the light.
Is amazing. It's also very weird. It travels in waves, and as it interacts with particles and materials, it scatters and shifts. Even if we can't actually...
And start producing potential toxins. I think that's what people are worried about, but for some reason that's connected to small point, which is not a direct correlation.
Indeed. An AC. I just need an AC source. Of course, everyone has an AC source at home. I just tied an LED to the end of my power line and I plug it in.
Deposits like these are typically found in places where bodies of water have dried up. So the existence of this salt giant suggests that at one point in history, the Mediterranean Sea must have evaporated. But how...
Particles. Visible, ultraviolet, or what we call shortwave radiation, primarily wiggles the fast-moving electrons in the bonds of molecules and atoms. Infrared
set up their equipment on a meadow. Their colleagues nearby are preparing a device that does look more high-tech. The geomagnetic apparatus is so heavy it has to be towed by...
You never know what you're going to dig up, and it's just nice and calm and peaceful, but you get those moments where it's very exciting when you find that thing.